Our aircraft is currently low on fuel, as denoted by the BRA-24 yellow warning caution, which illuminates when fuel goes below 24%. Press the master caution button to mute the audio alarm. One of the most innovative features of the AJS37 Viggen is that it was designed from the start, with its short takeoff and landing ability and thrust reverser, to be a part of the BAS-60 Air Base System 60, which focused on the dispersal of all Swedish air combat units to an extensive array of wartime airstrips built from modified country roads and highways, so that a nuclear attack would not easily destroy the air force on the ground. BAS-60 began to be implemented on 1958, but during the 80s was superseded by the BAS-90 system, which focused less on avoiding nuclear attack effects and more on surviving conventional airstrikes. The BAS-90 project slowed down with the end of the Cold War, and was halted by the mid-90s. The system was completely scrapped in the 2000s, and many of the wartime air bases have been demilitarized and sold to civilian owners. Press spacebar to continue. While DCS does not have proper road bases on the Swedish style, Hitler offered on 1917 a feature called Mobile Ground Crew that would allow a Viggen on DCS to operate from a road or highway. You interact with this ground crew through the Viggen's kneeboard to request rearm and refuel. Originally, Hitler had equipped this mobile ground crews with the ability to change locations, so that you could start an attack mission from one road base, fulfill the mission and land on a different road base, and the ground crew would have moved by themselves to wait for your return at the new road base. Unfortunately, this ability was scrapped a couple of years later, being too difficult to maintain as DCS evolved. Meanwhile, on 2020, DCS introduced its invisible FARP, which allowed pretty much the same abilities as Hitler's mobile ground crew, placing them near a road, rearming, and refueling nearby Viggens. On this mission your Viggen has already been cold-started and is ready to taxi. You have at your disposal both Hitler's mobile ground crew, at your left, and a regular FARP, forward arming and refueling point, at your right. The latter is used through the DCS communications menu, while Hitler's crew is used through the kneeboard. We will try both facilities on this mission. Press spacebar to continue. The mission has the following subjects: rearm and refuel, taxi to a nearby road, before takeoff checks, take off, and fly to the first waypoint, B1. This training series is set on the Nevada map, and the approximate mission time is 25 minutes. By default, the pilot's body is shown. You can use left shift plus P to hide it if you prefer. When a voiceover tells you to interact with a cockpit element, wait until the voiceover has finished, before performing the interaction. If you are repeating the mission, note that most voiceovers can be skipped just by pressing the spacebar. Press spacebar to begin. To demonstrate the use of the DCS ground crew, associated with the FARP to our right, let's contact them and ask for ground power, even if we don't really need it. Press \. The DCS communications menu should appear. Press F8, ground crew. F2, ground electric power. F1, on.
Chief, turn on the
Press
ground
spacebar
power.
once the crew connects the GPU.
Copy. Ground power is now on.
Since this was just a demonstration, let's disconnect it, so that we don't forget it later. By now you already know the drill. Press F8, ground crew. F2, ground
Chief,
electric
turn off the
power.
ground power.
F2, off. Press
Copy.
spacebar once the crew disconnects the GPU.
Ground power is now off.
While we could rearm and refuel using the DCS communications menu, we will instead use Hitler's mobile ground crew to learn how to use it. You employ the kneeboard to interact with this crew. Press right shift plus K to open the kneeboard. Next, page forward until you reach the ground crew settings page. Press spacebar once you have that kneeboard page visible. The mobile ground crew section of this page is what we are interested in. Press left Alt plus left Control plus L to choose an armament loadout. For this mission select 2 RB74 plus 2 RB05. Next, press left Alt plus left Control plus F to choose a refuel level in increments of 25%. For this mission select 130% so that the crew adds an external fuel tank. Finally, to begin the rearm and refuel process, press left Alt plus left Control plus Enter. A progress line will appear. Once the rearm and refuel complete message appears, close the kneeboard with right Shift plus K. We can contact the FARP's ATC to request clearance, but unfortunately it only handles helicopters. Let's give it a try anyway. The Viggens FR22 primary radio is already tuned to the ATC frequency. You can check it on the Airbase's page of the kneeboard. Press the key or button that you have binded to the FR22 push to talk. The DCS communications menu should appear. Select F5, ATC, F8, single helipad, F3, request startup. Press spacebar once ATC refuses the clearance.
Springfield 1-1, negative.
Parking brake, release. Briefly press the brake pedals to release the parking brake handle. Master mode selector, set to nav. We will do this now, rather than on the takeoff road, because the HUD symbology serves as alignment reference when taxiing on this narrow roads. The HUD is now active. Adjust its brightness with the highlighted knob. Press spacebar to continue. Enable the radar by setting its mode switch to its A1 or A2 position. Use the highlighted knob to reduce the radar screen brightness and make it easier to see. The radar will start working once the aircraft is on the air. Press spacebar to continue. Okay, we are now ready to taxi. The figure shows the taxi route we must follow to reach the highway section that we will be using as runway. On street roads like these, always taxi right over the center line. If you deviate too much to the road sides, your aircraft can easily get stuck on the dirt. Also, taxi a bit on the fast side, as the speed makes it harder to get stuck if your main wheels drift out of the street. On intersections, don't turn the aircraft right away. Instead, enter straight ahead until your own seat is over the perpendicular street, and then do the turn. Turn your head sideways when reaching the intersection, rather than looking straight ahead. It helps to better judge when you are actually over the intersection. On streets, always turn with full rudder. Reduce throttle a bit before reaching the intersection, but at throttle once you start the turn, to avoid getting stuck if a main wheel goes out of the pavement. If you do get stuck while taxiing on a street, wiggle the nose wheel while increasing throttle to max in short bursts, until you break free. If you can't get unstuck, wait a few seconds and the mission will offer to end, so that you can retry it later. Press spacebar to begin the taxi. Increase throttle until the aircraft begins to roll forward. Check wheel brakes. Good, release the brakes and let the aircraft roll again. Turn right on the next intersection. Remember the tips I gave you earlier. Rudder full right when over the crossing, throttle up a bit. The takeoff road is near, right where that vehicle is parked. Turn right on the next intersection. Remember the tips I gave you earlier. Rudder full right when over the crossing, throttle up a bit. Align with the center line of the road. Once aligned, press the wheel brakes and stop the aircraft to a complete halt. Good, we will now proceed with the rest of the before takeoff procedure. Main and backup heading indicators, main and backup altimeters. Check. First, compare the headings of the ADI, the central indicator, and the backup course indicator. They should match and be around 305 degrees. Press spacebar to continue. Next, compare the two altimeters. They should match and be very near QFE altitude. Press spacebar to continue. Runway heading, check. The navigation system of the Viggen is based on automatic dead reckoning, where the pilot inputs the origin point for navigation, the takeoff position, and thereafter the aircraft senses any changes in course, speed and attitude, updating its current position. On the Viggen's navigation system, our current B0 waypoint corresponds to our starting road base, and the data cartridge has loaded on the computer its initial position. However, the computer is still missing the initial heading of our aircraft. We will have to manually enter our current runway heading. Turn the computer data selector to its Bona Grand's position. We can see that the Viggens has a 0 heading for this road runway. To enter a manual heading, change the INUT switch to input. Next, on the numeric pad enter 3050, corresponding to the 305.0 degrees true heading of this road. To enter the new value, press LS. The display changes to all zeros, to denote that it has accepted the data. Now return the INUT switch back to UT, output. The heading data that we just entered is shown, 3050, plus 00 for the TILS channel. Now the Viggens navigation system has the correct initial position and heading needed for the ADR navigation. Finally, return the computer data selector knob to Act POS, which will display the aircraft's current position, in longitude and latitude. Act POS is available only in output mode, UT, as it does not accept any input. On Act POS, the display shows the current longitude and latitude using the leading 4 digits, alternating both coordinates every 1 second. The 5th digit displays the status of the turn-nav system, while the 6th digit shows the estimated error on the aircraft position, expressed in kilometers. Press spacebar to continue. SPAC, confirm it's on. SPAC is the main damping mode of the autopilot. It should be engaged at all times during normal flight. Press spacebar to continue. Master warning and warning lights, check. Confirm that all warning lights are out, with the exception of the 3 green lights of the landing gear, and the yellow X-tank bra light, of the external fuel tank, is lit while RPM are below 70%. Press spacebar to continue. HUD symbology, check that its information is correct. Make sure the HUD is at its lower position, press spacebar to continue. During the takeoff run, the timeline will expand with increasing airspeed. When the extremes of the line touch the rotation marks, the aircraft has reached the correct rotation speed. At that point, pull very slightly on the flight stick and the aircraft will rotate and raise its nose. Be gentle, do not let the attitude indicator go over the tallest pole, or the tail of the aircraft can strike the ground. Press spacebar to continue. Lights, set. Flip the highlighted switch to the takeoff and landing position, full forward. Takeoff pitch trim, check. To have an easier takeoff, set an initial pitch trim of 5 degrees nose up when flying with an external fuel tank, or 4 degrees if no fuel tank is fitted. Press spacebar to finish these pre-takeoff checks. OK, we will now proceed with the takeoff. 1. Apply full wheel brakes. 2. Advance throttle to maximum military power, check EGT. 3. Release brakes. 4. Use rudder pedals to steer. Advance throttle into afterburner. Monitor the timeline, rotate when it reaches its markers. Airborne. Retract landing gear. The HUD is now out of takeoff mode. Turn right towards the waypoint dot on the horizon line, to head towards the B1 waypoint. Raise the HUD glass, do not exceed 500 meters altitude, to have maximum navigation precision. The jump of the HUD symbology was caused by the turnav system making a position fix. Steer the aircraft to head towards the dot on the horizon. To fulfill this training mission, you need to reach at least the first waypoint of our route, B1. Keep flying under 500 meters above ground level. The dot on the horizon line will guide you towards the waypoint. You are now 15 kilometers away from the B1 waypoint. A timeline has appeared on the HUD. Good, you are now within 1 kilometer of the waypoint. The destination indicator should advance to B2. Excellent. You have successfully completed this training mission. Take off from a dispersed road base. Press spacebar to exit from the mission.